Hello, my name is Vikas Pota. The reason why we're organizing this global showcase for World Education Week is we believe that schools have incredible expertise in making sure that learning outcomes improve. Given the state of the world, we want to see the expertise from this particular school being replicated in schools all over our planet so that the world becomes better for everyone. That is why I congratulate this school for what it does and hope that those listening can take away conclusions as to how they should actually approach their own improvement journeys. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you in many of the other events this coming week. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for supporting this incredible work, without whom we couldn't have put together this global showcase. Thank you, and I wish you well for this event.
Fast-paced social, economic, and technology-driven change is redefining our world. And having a broad range of skills, such as creativity and problem-solving, has become far more important than being able to memorize information. To redefine how our children learn, and to empower them for the future, parents, teachers, and policymakers must stop overlooking a powerful part of the solution: learning through play. Play is the rocket fuel of child development, and there is a growing body of evidence to support that play is fundamental for children's positive growth and well-being over time. It is also an essential way to foster the skills required to thrive in today's world. The LEGO Foundation aims to build a future in which learning through play empowers children to become creative, engaged, lifelong learners. To do so, we work with a range of partners around the world to change the hearts and minds of all of those who influence children's lives through our programs, research, and advocacy, so they can all embrace the transformative power of play. Examples of what we do include making sure that caregivers, practitioners, and policymakers understand the importance of play, investigating, testing, and scaling new ways to bring play-based learning into homes and schools, using play to help millions of the world's most vulnerable children cope with adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress, or conducting research with some of the world's leading research institutions. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more.
Language connects us all. It's how friendships are formed, ideas are shared, and lessons are learned. Languages express our successes, both big and small. It lays the groundwork for learning and growth. And for an increasingly diverse student population, it can be the key to achievement in school and beyond. That's why Rosetta Stone Education is dedicated to language and literacy. We offer solutions designed to support teachers and their emergent bilingual students, recognizing and celebrating the knowledge, culture, and languages they bring to our classrooms. Our products are founded on the adaptive blended learning model for individual needs, continuous progress monitoring for better learning outcomes, and culturally responsive pedagogies for more inclusive classrooms. With solutions aligned with proficiency standards, we support language learning while exploring academic subject areas, paving the way to better outcomes. Because for all of us, language is everything.
Dear T4 community, we talk a lot about teachers these days, but we rarely listen to them. Therefore, I am truly excited to join the T4 World Education Week to hear from teachers and school leaders all over the world how we can impact learning together. I'm particularly looking forward to the global showcase. 100 schools sharing their expertise and best practices, I believe, will be a huge motivation for other schools around the globe. I'm equally impressed by the T4 Solutions Challenge, its finalists and their solutions to real-world issues in education. This gives me hope that we can, together, turn around education globally. The Jacobs Foundation is a proud supporter of the T4 World Education Week because we share a vision to reimagine learning and education by bringing together the brightest people who understand how children learn. Let's do this together.
Not only train them educationally, we also train them to acquire skills in area of their interest. So the only way we can do it is to cooperate with both the learners and their parents in raising these children to the standard that we want them to as a school.
Thank you very much. And you're welcome to the 2020 T4 World Education Week. It has been such an inspiring week by teachers and for teachers, looking at how teachers are making a difference across the world. We know that there has been a lot of enthusiasm in achieving the SDGs since the UN developed the 17 SDGs in 2015. However, the progress has been slow and there's a need to become more proactive in how we drive these solutions, especially in respect to the SDG 4 education. To achieve this, T4 has decided to celebrate teachers through this week in line with the World Teachers Day. And we have been doing this since the 5th of October to today. We're trying to drive global learning by selecting 100 schools across the world to showcase their unique expertise in 5 key areas. Today, we'll be looking at the theme, deepening family and community engagement. And before we just head on to the business of today, I'd like to share some housekeeping rules with us, if it can be projected. So as much as possible, ensure that your device is muted. You cannot mute and unmute yourself. To ask questions, there's a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. You could type in your questions there and we will monitor the questions to ensure that we capture all of them. And then ensure that you turn on your live caption option to see the translation to selected languages. Then when asking your questions and you need a specific speaker to respond to your question, kindly note the speaker you would like to engage the question. And we hope and we trust that you'll have a great time today. Like I said earlier, we are looking at the theme deepening family and community engagement. We understand that there are gaps in knowledge and ability between children from disadvantaged communities as against their advantaged peers. And these gaps open up right from when they're toddlers, right throughout life. And it's difficult and costly to close. So we're trying to see how we can take proactive approaches to cognitive and social skill development through investing in early quality investments in their family and community, in raising the learners who will prove to be more effective and efficient than trying to close the gap when they grow up later in life. So the theme we're looking at today seeks to discuss the impact of integrating this holistic approach in the development of the learners by deepening stakeholder investment. We're going to be looking at a very, very extraordinary school, Ikangba Erinlu United Anglican Primary School in Ogun State, Nigeria. We have two extraordinary speakers that will be sharing with us the strategies they have been able to engage in deepening family and community engagement. We know that it's important to invest in the families and communities of the students that we teach, but we want to understand how we can do this properly to achieve the goals that we have as teachers. So it gives me so much pleasure to introduce our first speaker for today. Her name is Nene Ibezim, and she's the founder of Leading Kids Program, which is a leadership development training program specifically designed to empower children in underserved primary schools, public primary schools, to achieve their full leadership potential. She's a teacher and a 2019 Teach for All Global Girls Education Fellow. She serves as a mentor to many students and youths, including teenage secondary school girls, under the Global Youth Leadership and Girl Child Foundation. Her drive and passion for education has propelled her to participating in advocacy programs for every child's access to quality education, irrespective of their socio-economic background. Sit tight as we listen to Nene share the strategies that she has used to deepen family and community engagement in her community in Ogun State. Over to you, Nene.
All right. Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for that warm introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Nene Ibezim. Thank you for joining this session. Truly, it is an honor to share, and it's a greater honor for my school, Ikangba Erinlu United Anglican Primary School. So it's also an honor for our school to be selected to be showcased during the World Education Week. So I'll quickly get right into it. I'll be sharing with you some key strategies on how I've been able to effectively deepen family and community engagement in the school where I teach and in the community where my school is located. Now, family and community engagement effectively helps to improve overall learning outcomes, especially for children in underserved communities. Very quickly, I am going to share with you 5 strategies. So I'll just be highlighting some of the processes that helped me to do this. So the first is deep listening to parents. When I started to teach in the community where I work, one thing that was important to me was to get to understand the hopes, their dreams, aspirations that they had for the for their children. So I had to take my time to listen to them. I did this by spending a lot of time in the communities, and engaging with the parents like this one-on-one helped me to understand all of this process. When I got to understand their hopes and dreams, it helped me to design a learning experience for the children, because I was well aware of what the parents wanted for their child. Another key thing that I did was to effectively engage the parents in the activities we did in the classroom. And how I was able to do this was through the use of art activities. This is because the parents of the children that I work with are not literate. Almost 99% of them cannot read and write. So literacy is actually a critical challenge. So what I did was to use art activities as that medium. So I invited parents of the children to come into our school and come into our classroom. And we had parents that sat together with their child in the classroom, and they got to hold pencils. For many of them, it was the first time they were holding pencils in decades. So they've never had the opportunity to actually hold a pencil. So it was truly transforming. So they had the opportunity to sit with their child in class and actually engage in the activities that their children get to do every day in the classroom. And for many of them, it was the first time to have such an opportunity. That helped them to get engaged with the materials that their children are learning in the classroom. And we did that in for maths class, for English class, and even for science class as well. So they had that interaction, and it was truly transforming. Another key strategy was giving parents consistent feedback. So when I started teaching the children in my class, it was important for me to share with them the level where their child is at, and to also share with them where we would like to get their child to. So as their child was making progress, I ensured that I shared consistent feedback with the parents. Now, for parents of the children that I work with, if we limit feedback to the assessment test, how they are performing in the exams and tests, that would not be enough. So I had to show them. So for example, when a child has been able to improve really well in his or her handwriting, so I take the child's notes and actually show the parent how the child was writing before, and then the handwriting that has improved. So the parent can clearly see the difference, and that communicates to the parent progress for that child. Another thing that I did was also to collaborate with the parents to design the learning experience for their children. And this is because engaging them in this design process guaranteed that they would stay true to it and help to also monitor their children as well. So we had several conversations on how the learning experience of their child can be improved. So it was a conversation of the parents sharing suggestions with me on how to improve the learning experience for their child. And at the end of the day, the both of us, myself and the parents, would collectively agree that, okay, this is what we were going to do. And the parents were clear on what they had to do. I was clear on what I had to do. And for them, it was the teacher is in the school doing our own bits. Then I, as the parent, am at home. I'll also do my own bit as well. And the last thing I would share is that we also took our learnings to the community. Now, the children that I work with, majority of them have opportunity to only learn when they are in school. So when they leave the school, their learning does not continue. And I realized that that actually affects their school. So it was important to me that they are able to take their learning from the school and then even into their community. So we engaged in a lot of activities in the community. That gave opportunity for members of the community to get to see the things that the children were learning in the school. So we got opportunity to have several activities in the community where we got to invite members of the community to participate in the activities. So for example, we had a creative art workshop in the community, and we invited parents and members of the community, and they got the opportunity to tell stories of the community using art. So we had pictures, there was opportunity to share stories as well, and that really helped to translate the learnings from school in the community as well. So these are some of the strategies that I have been able to use. And what we've recorded is that as a result of doing all of this, we've realized that the attendance rate of the children in the school has greatly improved. And also, the parents now invest more in providing learning materials for the children. And this is because they are always well aware of what is going on in our classroom. They're well aware of what their child needs to effectively learn in their classroom. And they're also well informed about the progress that their child is also making in the class as well. So these are some of the strategies. In summary, deep listening has helped me, actively engaging the parents in the activities of our classroom, giving parents consistent feedback on their child's progress, collaborating with the parents in designing a learning experience for their child, and also taking learnings to their own, into the community. So these are some of the strategies I've employed, and that has helped me deepen family and community engagement in my school and the community as well. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Grace, please, can you unmute your mic? So.
Apologies, please. Yes, so I was just mentioning how very inspiring it is to see teachers like you go the extra mile to ensure that children in these communities learn holistically and, you know, develop to be useful members of society. A question I would like to ask is, how easy was it for you to get these parents on board? Did you ever face any challenge in trying to get active engagement of the parents of these children? And if you did, what were the strategies you used in ensuring that they came on board?
Thank you, Grace. Thank you for that question. So the answer is yes. I did face a lot of challenges in trying to engage parents. In fact, I remember clearly when I shared the idea with some of my colleagues, other teachers in my school, and one of them told me, don't waste your time. The parents of these children are not just interested in their learning. But when I thought about it, I realized that there is no parent that does not want the best for his or her child. So I knew that in their hearts, they wanted the best. So the question was, the challenge was, they just did not know how to make that happen. So what I did was I started with a few parents. So I didn't try to reach all of the parents at the same time. So I started to meet with parents one after the other. And when I was able to get a few on board, they were the ones that actually started to reach out to other parents of the children in my class and to share their experience with them. And that really helped us to grow the level of engagement that we had with the parents until we reached the 100%. Yes, thank you.
Wow, that is so inspiring to hear. So thank you very much, Nene, for this strategies that you have shared with us. Next, we'll be having Gobi Daniel. And Gobi Daniel is a graduate of business management and currently a postgraduate student of Babcock University, Ogun State. His passion for children, teenagers, and youths propelled his involvement in the Teach for Nigeria Fellowship Program, where he actively participated in driving transformational change in the education space in Kaduna, a northern state in Nigeria. He is also passionate about driving systemic change at the grassroots level, shifting mindsets for learners and other education stakeholders, building excellent relationships, and overall leadership development. We'll be listening to Gobi Daniel share with us the strategies he employed as well in engaging stakeholders in his community. Over to you, Mr. Gobi Daniel.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to speak to you on some of the strategies that has made all the difference in my classroom. So in the few minutes I've been given to share, I feel it's very important for me to just go straight to the point, to share with you some of the strategies that have helped me to achieve some level of success in the classroom. And that the strategy I would like to share with you is a deep understanding of the parent's expectation of every child that was placed in my classroom. That is to say that the strategy that worked for me was to have a deep understanding of what the expectations of the parents of every child that was placed in my classroom are for each of the children in my classroom. So I know this sounds really, it sounds like an uphill task. A good number of you will be asking, so how was he able to do this, right? So I'll just share with you very briefly. Now, I was able to gather data regarding the expectations of every parent, the parents of every child in my classroom, by first of all drawing up a visitation plan, because I have a very large class size of 90, and I mean I can't visit all my 90 kids within 1 week. Even if I was some superhero, I would certainly not be able to do that. So what I did was to draw up a visitation plan to say, oh, I 10 children per week. So I spent an average of 7 hours visiting my children every week. The reason why I decided to visit my kids in their various houses was just so that I can deepen relationship with my kids beyond just the classroom. Most importantly, I understood that long-lasting success can never be achieved without the involvement of the key stakeholders. Now, in visiting the parents of my kids, I was able to put together monthly meetings where parents come into school and then we sit down together in a round table to discuss the problems and the challenges that these kids are facing. And together we come up with solutions. Now, I'll just share a quick example of a particular child in my classroom by the name Aminu Al-Qasim. Now, Aminu Al-Qasim is a very quiet boy. So I noticed that he was always reserved in class. He wouldn't want to share with anybody. And then he was really struggling. But his potential wasn't just aligning with what I was seeing at the time. So what I did was to observe Aminu Al-Qasim for a week. And after I did that, I now also visited Aminu's parents. So it was in one of those visitations that I got to know that the boy was born with myopia. Now, myopia is a medical condition that makes it very difficult for the patient to be able to see objects from afar. Now, this medical condition made this child to suffer a lot of stigmatization within the community. As a matter of fact, so many people used to call him blind boy. Now, just that tag alone made Aminu's self-confidence to go down the drain. He wouldn't even lift his head up in the classroom, let alone engage other kids. Now, how was I able to address this problem? So the first thing I did was to spend more time with Aminu Al-Qasim, just to understand what his expectations are. So like I'll ask Aminu time and again, so Aminu, what do you want to do after school? And then Aminu will say beautiful things like, oh, I want to become a doctor someday so I can help people with the same medical condition. And that touched my heart so much because obviously he had suffered stigmatization from the people in the community and then friends around as well. Now, when he said that, I also reached out to his parents as well, just to have an understanding of why, in spite of his condition, they still sent him to school. And then they told me that they believe that regardless of whatever condition it is that the boy was suffering at the time, he still could be able to study and pass his exams and become whatever he chooses to become. And then when I understood this, the first thing I did was to change. Another thing I did rather was to change Aminu's change the sitting arrangement in my class. And once I did that, Aminu's seats now. I brought Aminu to the front, and then I placed him in the midst of 10 children in my class. I mean, children that were super active, children that could just get him engaged and all that. And then once I did that, he began to have engagement conversations with them. And before I knew what was happening, Aminu began to, engage in class activities. His self-confidence was coming back again. And then he was just beginning to have a feel of what it means to be in the classroom and to learn. And then the next thing I did was the fact that I paid special attention to him. So during break, for instance, I will call him aside. We'll have sessions where just in case there are topics or there are assignments that he's not able to, wrap his head around, I'll just help him through with that. And then before I knew it, Aminu's academic performance rose by 70%. Now, sharing his story with his parents is stirred up this very strong desire in them to want to invest some more. So when I asked them, for instance, to get a particular book for him that could help him to read and write, I mean, they just get it without even asking questions, right? And then they got so involved in the activities of Aminu in the class. And then another story is also another child in my class by the name Alamin Sani. Now, Alamin too, in fact, his own case was so serious. He was born with, he drools, he can barely hold his pencil, and then he had this deformity that made him, a lot of the teachers in my school were just managing him at the time I started teaching him. So what I did was to also engage with his parents, like visited them at home just to have an idea of what their expectations are for the boy concerning the fact that he's a special needs child. And then he couldn't, according to them, he couldn't just do so much. So they just sent him to school, just to come to school and just what's gonna be. But I told them that in spite of the fact that the boy is a special needs child, he could still learn regardless. And then we started the journey all over, started paying close attention to Alamin. And then I noticed also that the same boy that had shaky hands could hold his pencil firmly. And then once I started engaging him, I noticed that beyond just holding his pencil, he started writing by himself. And then the same boy that used to drool all of a sudden stopped drooling because his parents started encouraging him from, encouraging him as much as they could, because I made them understand that in as much as he's a special needs child, he could still learn. He just needed to be taught in a special way, and then he'll get it. So as I speak to you, Alamin and Aminu Al-Qasim, they both wrote promotional exams and they got promoted to grade 2. That sounds amazing, right? Good. So the second strategy I'd like to share with you also is to frequently have parents to come to school. So we get to engage with our parents. There are specific days in a month where our parents come to school and then they sit down with the children, right? So there are days where we have open days where parents come around and then they get to see how that, these children they see what they're doing in the classroom, and then they get carried along. So most times we get to do those activities together, we play, and do all of those things, and then that way I saw that a lot of parents that are coming to school, they were just strolling to school. Oh, I just came to see how you people are doing. I just came to see how you are doing, and that created some sort of, they started investing heavily in the education of their children. Okay, so in conclusion, I would like to say that beyond just having a beautiful classroom vision for your kids, you must also understand what the expectations of the parents of your children have for their kids, right? Because this understanding of the expectations of their parents for their kids would help you to deepen relationship. And then when this relationship is deepened, right, it makes it easy for parents to invest heavily in the education of their children, right? So 2 quick strategies, like I said, having a deep understanding of the expectations of their parents for their children. And then secondly, having the parents to come to school frequently and just have a feel of what's happening in the classroom, and just so that way they get carried along. So I believe that if teachers around the world, engage in these 2 strategies I just mentioned, it will help to deepen family involvement and the community involvement. And that way, together we'll build a system, that makes it easy for effective learning to happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gobi Daniel. That was really inspiring as well. Listening to you share specific examples of how these children's lives were transformed by just going the extra mile to ensure that they're fine, mentally, emotionally, and academically as well. My question to you, because I heard you mention you had 80, how many pupils in your classroom? What strategy would you say was effective in enabling you reach out to each of them? And these strategies that you shared with us today, how possible is it to implement them in a class size of, say, 500? So if I have a classroom of 500, can I also implement these same strategies that you have talked about? And if I can, how would you recommend that I do that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So like I did mention, I have a class size of 90. Yes, and so it's certainly not going to be possible for you to visit all this. It wasn't possible for me to visit all the kids in my classroom in one day. So what I did was to draw up a plan to say that, after school, I'll visit 3 of my kids before I get home, right? And then when you're able to split that, let's say, because a good number of the kids live in clusters, right? Their houses are not far from each other. They live in clusters. So it's very easy for you for me to visit 3 of my kids after school every day. So let's say if you have a class size of 500 and above, so I think if you try to split that up, you could draw up a schedule to say, in 2 weeks' time or daily after school, I'll visit, let's say, 5 kids per day. Right. So when you do that within a month, you would have covered a significant number, right? And then you do that continuously. Yeah. So you could just draw up a schedule and then you just ensure that you follow through the schedule, and then I would encourage everyone. I know it's not really going to be easy, but it takes that determination. It takes that extra push for you to be able to follow through. So it's possible for you to have to draw up a schedule and still not follow it. You need some level of determination to be able to follow through. If today you're doing 5 kids, just ensure that whatever happens, you visit those 5 children before the day runs out. So I think if they drop that schedule, it will be easy for them to be able to implement this strategy over time. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gobi. And I believe that as educators, planning and time management is something that we are exceptional at. So we just need to also put that into consideration while trying to deepen these relationships with the stakeholders. Ms. Nene, a question I have for you here from a member of the audience is, you mentioned bringing parents into the classroom and integrating art into your lesson. Did you set out a specific time in the week to do this, or was this integrated into the daily lessons? And please, if you have other questions for our panelists, kindly send them in. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nene.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so for integrating arts in the lessons in the classroom, yes, I did this across all subjects. So the art activities, because they're called doodles, and the activities that can be done in 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah, so it was every day and the lessons. About engaging the parents with the children, I did that. It's always at the start of every term and at the end of every term. In between, we have our engagement in the community. So when we resume for a term, we have the engagement with the parents, and then when we're ending the term, we have another engagement in the school. But in between, engagement is done in the community on weekends. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant, Nene. Well done. A follow-up question to that is, did you also create opportunities for your learners to interact with community leaders? And if you did, how did that shape their acceptance in the community and enhance their learning within the classroom?
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So as regards that, one thing is the community where I teach, I'm not from that community. So I was there because I was teaching in the school. So I had to work with the children. So the children, they know their village. They know the community leaders. So all of the activities that we had in the village was actually facilitated by them. They were the ones that knew who to meet with, who to seek permission from, who to ask for support. So my children, they led and I followed. So that really helped them. And in that process of doing all of that, members of the community, they got to interact with them. And actually, they also got to see the difference because they also know the children and they know where the children were at, before joining me in my class. They knew where the children were at. So when they started engaging with them, they got to see the growth process that the children had gone and were going through. So that really helped a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nene. So one of the strategies that I remember Gobi Daniel sharing, irrespective of the class size that he had, I asked him a follow-up question to that, which was, can the strategies shared be implemented in a classroom with a larger class size? And I'll just like to ask Nene the same question. So say I have a class size of 400. All the strategies that you have been able to share and implement in your classroom, how can they be implemented?
All right. So I am going to share just a summary of how that can be done. Teachers can use the divide and conquer rule because of the large class size. So as Daniel shared, when you draw up an engagement plan, schedule it so that you visit them in clusters. Schedule it so that you visit them in clusters. What I actually did was I had a list of all the children in my class and where they lived, and I could group them according to the locality where they stayed. So do that. And then even while in the classroom, you can pair the children in your class. When you pair them in small groups, the group should not be a large one, it should be small groups. So I did a group of 5. That was the smallest group I did. So, and then you get one child to be a group leader responsible for that group. So that way you can ensure that every child has an opportunity to actually grow. So I think that's one key strategy that we can use. And the second thing is also engage other teachers as well in all that you're trying to do. So because that kind of support system is needed if we truly want to build this culture. So it's not just only about you, the teacher in your classroom, it's also about other teachers in other classrooms as well. Because all of these children in the school, come from the surrounding communities. So it's important to engage them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response, Nene. I remember when you were speaking, you talked about majority of the parents not being literate. I'd like to know whether there was some form of language barrier that you encountered, and if there was, how were you able to, cross that hurdle? After you respond to that question, I'd also like to ask Mr. Daniel his response as well. Nene.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so
Nene, the question is for you, please.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Yes, so language was a big barrier, was a huge barrier, because apart from the parents not being literate, apart from parents not being able to read and write in English, their local language is actually different from mine. So I couldn't even communicate with them in their local language as well. So what I did was, rather than speak, or I did more of showing. So really, that was how I was able to effectively communicate with the parent. So it was more of showing. So I had to demonstrate a whole lot. I had to show them what I wanted to communicate. So for example, when during our engagements in the classroom with the children, the activities. So I show them the kind of activities we want to do. Sometimes I use role play. So I demonstrate it with a child and then I show them, oh, this is exactly what I would like you to do. And then they are able to replicate it. So that was how I was able to do that. We did more of demonstration, more of showing rather than telling. Thank you.
Thank you, Nene. So, Mr. Gobi Daniel, same question to you. What strategies did you employ if the language barrier was a thing for you in that same community, as I believe it was?
Okay, so just like Nene shared, so another thing just to add to what she said, there's some children in the classroom that understand English, and then they understand their local language as well. So what I did was to engage the children to be like some sort of middlemen. So as I'm doing the demonstration and then I'm talking, I'm trying to explain it. So you just see them saying, oh, mommy, he's saying this. Oh, daddy, he's saying this, right? So they now help to translate whatever it is I need them to do in their local language so the parents can understand. Because I don't understand the native language of that place. So I do a lot of the demonstration, and then I get someone in my classroom, or maybe a teacher that understands the native language, to be able to do the translation while I just give out instructions or whatever it is I need them to do. So we really used our children that understood or that understand the language, the native language, and then other staff as well, the teachers in the school who understood the language, just to help their parents to understand exactly what it is we're passing across to them. So, I mean, we engage translators as well, both home and abroad. By home, I mean translators from our own classroom and those from abroad, those from outside of our classroom. So it was, so that was how we were able to translate to them.
Very interesting. So what I hear both of you say is there is absolutely no excuse So if we're willing to make it work, we'll find a way. If not, there's always an excuse to not do what we think we should. And as teaching leaders, I believe that that is why we're in these communities, to find solutions to the problems, because the problems will always exist. But how can we take that next step to be true leaders and, you know, committed to this cause in achieving the education goals? Mr. Daniel, the last question I have for you is, so what would you say was your biggest challenge in getting the community invested in your learners, and how was that challenge resolved? So you give us the biggest challenge you faced, and then how was the challenge resolved? Mr. Daniel.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced was the fact that a good number of parents had little or no interest in the education of their children. And then getting them to understand the value and the place of education in the overall development of their children, for a good number of them, it was such an uphill task, right? You hear people tell, especially when they need to get materials for them, when they need to just get instructional materials, maybe books or writing materials and all that. You hear a lot of them tell you stuff like, the one I bought for him is okay. I don't have money. I can't do more than what I've done, right? I just hear them tell you straight up, like, we can't do it. So what I did was to be patient with them, first of all, because I mean, it's just that they don't know, because if they know, they will act differently. So I needed to be patient with them. And then the second thing I did was to constantly share the success stories of other children in my classroom. So when I engage them, for instance, I'll share the story of the special needs children in my classroom who are doing amazingly well. And then I'll also share the impact story of other children whose parents are at the same level as they are, but are still going over and above to get every instructional materials and to be invested in the education of their children. So once I was able to share this, I noticed that a good number of them, started buying in. They started following up. They started, supporting us in the classroom. So to a point that most times when I ask the kids, oh, you need to get XYZ textbook, if for any reason their parents are not able to get it, they follow their children to school the next day to explain to me why it's not possible to get that book at this time, right? So, I mean, just sharing the stories of other people, just got a good number of them heavily invested in their children. Yes, so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gobi Daniel, for that.
Thank you, Mom.
So, final question to Nene Ibezim, because I heard a lot of, after you have gotten these parents on board, you have gotten other stakeholders on board, there's an issue that comes to mind, which is finance. So some of the parents, their excuse is, I cannot be involved in providing the resources that my children need because I cannot afford it. What are the things you think that teachers could do in encouraging them or in empowering them? So what do you think can be done in terms of, supporting parents financially so that they are part of these?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Okay, so one thing I'd like to say is the reason you might have some parents that may not be willing to invest in maybe getting materials, or maybe they're not able to. For parents of children in the communities that we work in, majority of them have to fend for their daily feeding. So they depend on what they're able to get to eat every day. So it's a struggle to actually set aside money to pay for materials that their child may need in the school. So when I realized that, what I did was I started to let them know beforehand the kind of resources that their children would need. So when we start a new term, the parents are already aware beforehand about the materials that they would need. And I got this idea because one of the parents actually shared with me something she started to do, and that was to save money bit by bit, towards buying textbooks for our son. So if she was able to do that, I knew that, oh, this was because she actually knew that her son needed these textbooks, and she was able to actually start saving money for it beforehand. So I think what teachers can do is to inform parents beforehand on what the kind of resources that their child will need. That's one. Then the next thing to do is to help parents understand why that resource is needed, why the child needs that resource. Then the third step is to help parents see the result of that child having that resource. So I'll quickly share. For example, when I started teaching in my classroom, a lot of the children in my class did not have textbooks. They did not have any textbook at all. Now, I got some textbooks for some of them. And when the child was able to read some of these books, I actually visited the child at home to see the parent, to sit with the parent and the child and ask the child to actually read the book, sometimes storybooks, sometimes textbooks, to read it to the parent. So I see the shock and the surprise on the parent's face that my child can actually read from the textbook. So doing this can actually help support parents and actually help them invest more in their child's learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nene Ibezim. I know I said that was the last question, but our audience is on fire. So we'll take just one more before we call it a day. To both of you, you talked a lot about going to their homes to visit. And the question here is, why didn't you use phone calls to communicate with the parents of your pupils instead? It would have saved you a lot of time and energy. Why was, this house visitation thing important in driving learning? So let's have Mr. Daniel share first, and then Ms. Nene, you go.
Okay, so I need our audience to understand that our school is not in the urban center where you readily have phones and network and internet connection and all that. So a good number of these parents don't even have mobile phones to start with. So how do you now call them on the phone? So, and then another reason why house to house was so important was because there are issues that these children are faced with, that these issues have their roots at home. And until you go to their houses, trust me, you will not be able to understand the context or understand exactly where they are coming from. So I think that is why house-to-house visitation is very important, just so that you can deepen that relationship. And it's not just some casual relationship you have with them. I know there is a level of relationship that obviously you cannot build over the phone, right? It's different when you're having a one-on-one engagement than having an engagement over the phone. So I think it's just so we can deepen the relationship and just to understand where these kids are coming from. It stirs up that sense of empathy, and it gives you a better understanding of the issues that they're faced with. So that's
okay. Thank you. So house-to-house visitation was important for me because it helped to break down the barriers that existed from between my students and myself, and even between the parents and the school as well. So it helped to break down that barriers. That was why house-to-house visitation was important, really. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Nene Ibezim and Mr. Gobi Daniel, for this very, very inspiring and insightful session. So just to highlight the 5 key points. So I hear you say listening to parents and engaging them through activities, sharing feedback with them to understand the growth that their children are, going through, the collaboration with the parents to design learning experiences for the children, deepening effective relationships with the children, as well as having monthly engagements, and then co-creating solutions with these stakeholders. Thank you so much, our audience. It has been so wonderful doing this. Thank you to all the sponsors and the partners of the T4 Education Week event. We would like to also specially thank our technical wonder woman that has made sure we had this seamless event, Ms. Sandra Meningwa. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure and an honor doing this with you today. Have a very wonderful day.